Ladies and gentlemen, Intelligentsia Noir.
What's going on, team? Kid Golden Arms here with Intelligentsia Podcast, and I got a guest with me today. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, my name is Raul Rodart-Suto here at the studio.
Didn't say it all magical.
It's magical in here. It's a whole nother world in here.
I'm working on it, man. It's been a process. I actually really like this mic. I might not spend the extra money. Like, I'm really liking this mic. Like,
It picks up nice.
it does.
Yeah,
it does. So, like I said, these headphones, the Audio Technica.
Yeah.
I had the I believe it's like the AT2020 or something like that is what that model was. And you talk about a great sounding mic. Like, it was so crisp, dude. It just made me sad. And I get that some of it can be taken care of with the mixer, and then in post you can change some of the stuff and not have all the background stuff.
Yeah.
But that, I'm a worrier. And so I didn't want to risk it, especially for this one. I didn't want to get a whole bunch of good content and then come back.
Right. Not be able to really
And
use it.
and not you be able to use it, yeah. And so, but I could hear the TV in the back room, and I was like, goodness gracious.
That's a few rooms back, too.
Yeah. And it was, I could barely hear it, but I could hear it.
Yeah.
So it probably could have been taken care of, but I could definitely hear it. So today on the menu, we have, we're going to review Spike Lee's The BlackKklansman, which, have you got a chance to listen to the audiobook?
The audiobook? No.
Okay, it's not very long.
Okay.
It's not very long at all. But it's interesting because the actual guy reads it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's reading it.
Ron.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, he's reading it. It's funny because he's not Denzel Washington's son. And so and so, which, if y'all didn't know, that's who plays him in the movie. That's actual Denzel Washington's son. It wasn't a coincidence that he looked and talked a lot like his father. He's like, well, it's Ron, and I'm here to join the Klan. Like, he had that.
We'll talk about, that's definitely a point I want to talk about later on, about just inflection and the voice. Did you get to hit any of the podcasts? You asked me about the audiobook, but some of the podcasts I sent you on that.
Oh, yes.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, we'll have to explain some of the references, but
okay, it's good stuff.
yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So yeah, man. I thought the BlackKklansman was, I mean, hell of a timing to put that film out. It's not as serendipitous as the timing as Gambino's "This Is America." Like, I don't know if there has been much better timing for very many things than that song, because the time that song, I mean, in the times that we are in the political climate that we're in, so to speak, and then there had been a few shootings right there, and then Kanye West had come out and said some of the stuff he did, and he was unabashedly, unashamed, and I guess if that's where he chooses to throw his support, whatever, but for his support for Trump, and then saying slavery was a choice, and then This Is America comes out right after that. and people can say what they want, but he didn't create that song in a day as a response. Like, that song,
right. There's no way that, especially, I mean, the song in itself was just layered, but then that level of references within that song,
right?
And then that's not even including the video.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and so, I mean, this falls kind of in the same vein as all of that, and I found it a really interesting look. So kind of to start it out, Alec Baldwin's opening kind of monologue. It was weird because I mean, it was I say weird. I mean that more of neat. Because also if you have not seen the BlackKklansman, just beware because this is gonna be spoilery as shit.
Yeah,
So
I was about to say this is already there if we're about to talk about that part, because are you talking about the recording of that scene?
Yeah.
Like him, literally him recording and practicing and getting it right. Yeah, I love that scene.
I mean, it was fantastic. You know, it was like you were watching the beginning of kind of a propaganda video.
Well, yeah, because it was.
It was, yeah, but it was amazing.
Yeah, he did a really good job with that.
Yes,
just the practicing the flubs, the correcting. I mean, you'll hear us do that on like on the background trying to, but it also gave that element of the preparation and intentionality.
Yes.
Of when propaganda comes out.
Right.
It's not slapstick. It's not thrown together. It's not like this. It's intentional.
Yeah.
And it's thought through. It's edited. You know, and I think that's one of the things that I took out from that part was they're not playing around. Anybody who's putting out propaganda is not playing around.
No. They have a point that they're trying to make. They have an audience they're trying to reach. Mm-hmm. They're trying to make themselves as well put together as possible. You know, even I watch, and I don't know if you notice it or if it just happens to me, but like a lot of the kind of media outlets that I watch on YouTube, excuse me, some of the ads placed before it are very propaganda ads. I don't know if you've ever seen these, but it's ridiculous, and I think they even started to. Because, you know, some people will put the thumbs up and thumbs down on their ads even.
Yeah, on the commercials.
Yeah. But I think this one particular outlet took it off. And, you know, they do it a lot, though. I don't know if they just are covering a gambit of channels. But I would say the channels I mostly watch would be considered like a progressive channel. And they would be more seen as the opposition of that, but they pop up all the time, and I feel like you have to get like just a ton of thumbs down from that.
Yeah, but if that's what you're going for,
it could be,
because if it is opposite, you know, if it's a anti whatever videos out there, the more thumbs down you get, the more people somewhat heard this. Right. So the more thumbs down, it's like these are the number of people reached in a sense. Now, I don't know how YouTube deals with up and down thumbs on commercials like that. I don't know if that even affects whether that ad stays out there or not. But it might be just information for the company. Well, for the company, it's saying, look how many thousands and millions of people heard that are actually part of the opposition. I don't know.
That's a good point, because I see them all the time. Like all the time. Like I said, only in the media outlet ones. Right. Okay, so but anyways, my point, I guess, to that really being is, as bad as I feel some of those really are, they took their time putting them together. They definitely didn't rush that out. I mean, I feel like they did. Like I feel like, you could have done better than that. Like that's like it almost feels like they're giving me some of them even almost come across as that slapstick B-movie college humor thing. It's really weird, or that look anyway. And I feel like that's a very weird thing, especially when you're promoting kind of a political message or a news outlet, that you would get that. And then maybe that's the thing. Maybe that is.
It might be done. Yeah. It might be done on purpose in a sense of the style that's popular within a certain demographic. Right. I also wonder if there's a reasoning. Maybe they're putting out so much of variety and trying to stay up to date on so many things that it tends to lose a little bit of quality, but the message still stays out there. I don't know.
I could see that. But yeah, it was really neat in the beginning. At first, you're kind of wondering what you're watching. Like, where is this going? Maybe. Not what you're watching.
No, yeah.
But kind of where is this going? And then, like, he kind of is doing the flubs and everything. And then when that lady first says something.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't say anything for a while. You can't.
She responds in and
yeah.
And she's helping record yet at the same time supporting yet. You also get a glimpse of where the woman belonged in that I guess community.
Yep.
Because we get a taste of that later on.
You get a taste of that plenty later on. Yeah, it like I said, well, not like I said, but earlier when we were talking, there was a lot of juxtaposition kind of in this movie. So let's go to where so he's hired on young man Washington is hired on and he starts off in records. He's working in records at first. Let me back up a little from there. They called him the Jackie Robinson. That's what they said he was going to be.
Yeah.
The Jackie Robinson of this project.
Police force.
Yeah, of the Colorado police force.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if that were to be asked, I feel like that's an okay thing to say to somebody. What I would have asked, if being in that position, if they said, if this happens, what are you gonna do?
Oh, when they're in that,
Yeah.
they're in his interview. When
In his interview.
literally asking him, if this happens, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, if somebody calls you nigger, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And he kind of dodged it the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go back to it, and they're like, "So what would you do?" He's like, "Well, if I have to accept it, I guess I'll do my best, or because I was raised proper, or something like that," is what he says.
Right. Something to where if it's not going to get in the way of getting the mission done or whatever the job is, then he'll push it to the side. But then he also hints that if that's not the case,
Yeah,
he's gonna
do something
about it.
Yeah. My question would have been, if I would have been in his position, like, okay, but what can I plan on you doing about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like-
that's definitely. That's where you can kind of tell the different era too,
Yes.
because that
Yes.
wasn't a thought
No.
back then. Not back then like it's so long ago, but that concept of like, no, what's your responsibility as an employer?
Yeah.
No, that
54 years to be exact.
it's still hard for that to happen in today's time,
Yes.
because there's so many reasonings. They're back and forth. There's policies, whatnot. But yeah, to throw that back at them, it's like, it's not our responsibility. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
I'd be like, no. You shouldn't, like, it shouldn't really get to me, or if it does finally get to me, I shouldn't have to do anything about it. Like, I shouldn't have to throw a punch or get my hands dirty. Like, if you're going to bring me in, protect your investment, I guess, would be the best way to kind of put that.
Well, it shouldn't be part of the culture of wherever he's being brought into. And if he's being brought in to change that culture, wouldn't the administration be part of the change of the culture?
You're right.
There's
You're right.
so many of those levels that there should be that support, not, hey, you're going to be this token awesomeness, and we're going to promote you, and you're going to be our ability to say, look, diversity, and move on, with nothing else changing.
Right. Yeah.
It happened all the time, though, and it's still happening today.
It still happens today.
Yeah.
And like I said, I want to touch on that, though, because there is a conversation later on in the movie about changing the system from the inside, and if that is a genuine possibility or not. Which is funny, because before watching this movie, I had that conversation anyways internally with myself, because sometimes I like to play out scenarios in my own head, and so I had that conversation kind of in my head. But anyways, so they had him working in the records office, and he really hated it. And even though it was a small snapshot, it was still the larger picture there about even the kind of disrespect that was going on with him just being in records. Like he didn't have any position, he didn't have any power. He hadn't seen the streets day one. And and it was like they hired him on to be a glorified record keeper in a sense, you know, and that was
No, yeah, and actually during that scene, I even had the thought of this seems like a very weird parallel to Zootopia, the cartoon when she plays that, you know, she's that token bunny in the police force.
Yes,
and that whole element, I was like, what the crap? How is this happening? You know,
you're right. Yeah,
but it was just a weird thought that happened. But at the same time, it's like, you know, that frustration of not being put in a position where you can not only develop to something better or show your talents or blossom into something. I mean, literally, you're hired on to be a token.
Yes,
and let's put you away. Let's mistreat you because you're just a token. You can't prove yourself, and you can't do anything positive because you're trapped in this, you know, mail room or whatever,
right,
or evidence room for him. And so, you know, you find yourself in this cycle of like, I can't improve. I can't climb the ladder. I'm not really allowed to. And we see that a lot even today. And we keep saying that. But that's the whole point of this movie. It's like the parallels. There's so many parallels between quote unquote then and now, and then just different aspects of that, and which we'll continue talking about.
It was just really neat to kind of see, and then his frustration. Then he does the kung fu, he does the kung fu moves, you know, and everybody's not in the room and everything,
right. and the slowness of getting the evidence.
Oh yeah,
that's your only tool to fight back or to kind of stick it to somebody who's mistreating
right,
you.
trying to get at him
Kinda
a little
like
bit.
This is like, so he slowly walks over here, slowly, you know, like,
and he looks, make sure, looks,
stretch out the power that you do have, and then move on.
Yeah, a little bite back. It was good, you know. And I will say, most of the comedy in this show was small like that. There was a few big moments, but that's not where the comedy lied in this. It was background stuff. It was very subtle, a lot of the comedy in this show, and I really enjoy that about stuff.
Yeah.
It's
such a heavy show.
It was such a heavy show, and you're not really sure what you're in for until you see it, and you're like, oh yes.
Well, let me tell you on that real quick. Within the first few minutes of getting into him being in Colorado Springs, let me tell you my experience the first time I went to Colorado Springs.
Okay.
Like, it was the first time I went up to the mountains. I was going up to Colorado, and there's a spot right before you get to Colorado Springs. There's a information station kind of place and a gas station across the street from it. Little rest stop there. And so do information stuff, go across the street, get gas, use the restroom. On the backside of the stall that I'm in, there's a sticker. And it's like, I had flashbacks when I saw the advertisement they used in the movie.
Okay.
Because it was pretty much the same thing. It was interested in, and it had some information, KKK, join, call this number. I mean, everything matched, it seemed. And it honestly, it brought back all these emotions that I felt on that first trip. And I still, every so often when I go into Colorado, I'm highly aware, because that was the first time I really was aware that I'm up here on the road pretty much by myself.
Right.
And there's a community out here that you can't tell who's who.
And especially in somewhere where I would even say that would be a little more poignant in a place like Colorado, where it's supposed to be pretty open and free.
Right. I'm going up there to the mountains to enjoy, to rest, to be with God, to like expand myself. And at the same time, I'm very hyper aware of everybody around me.
Yes. I'm
more hyper aware of the people at the campsites or people in the town as I'm going through than I am the bears and the panthers or whatever that's up there. You know, it's like there's a squirrel trying to eat something, and I'm like, all right, I'm fine with that. That noise is fine. I hear a pickup truck come up behind me and park, and they're thinking about camping, and I'm like, who are these people?
Well, yeah.
And so, you know, that element, that constant kind of fear of like, and maybe it's not fear, but maybe it's like this unease.
And so kind of going off what you're saying, that character, in a sense, has that same experience because he's not sure who within the Force is with him or not. And even so we'll kind of skip ahead. He's
Sure.
put on the, what is it, like undercover or special investigations?
I guess so, yeah.
Because he asked for it
Yeah.
and they denied him. They kind of laughed him off, actually.
Right.
And even told him that he was too black for it, which is really funny because when you hear the audiobook, you know that they only told him that only because he was black. Like when you hear the audiobook, like I said, it throws you off a little bit because
Really?
it throws you off a little bit. And I'm not saying he sounds super quote unquote white or anything like that, but you would never understand how somebody told him like, oh yeah, this will never work. Like I heard him and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that definitely should have worked. You know, and it might be because he's older now. You know, he's not maybe kind of the strapping young lad he was at one point. And
that's true.
yeah, you know, he might, and he was soul brother number one apparently. You know, and so when he first joins that team, it's still hard for him to tell because everybody that he had contact with while working in records was kind of like that to him.
Yeah.
And, in some veiled way or another. And then he gets to this other place, and the guys really kind of blow him off at first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things going against him. He was a rookie. He was his first year. He was black. He was placed there. I mean,
Right.
I mean, when you are the token person, or you are this,
The new thing.
the new thing. Yeah, people wonder, why are you getting certain privileges or certain things?
Right.
Is it because of that, or is there an agenda behind it? And why am I not getting it? But rewinding a little bit back. See, he's in the evidence room, and you also kind of, as people come in, like you were talking about, as people come in and interact with them, and even as the movie flows into that group that he gets placed into, you were talking about how you really didn't know who he could confide, who was an ally, who not. And I think the movie did a really good job of really not knowing. There are certain people that obviously, automatically, the way it was directed,
Yep.
And then there's others that you think are going to be supporting people of his character, and yet they make comments, or they make thoughts, or they see life a certain way that kind of impede him.
Absolutely.
And you're like, is that person closer to this side or this side?
Right.
On that like, are they even to the point of, are they racist or not, or are they just ignorant, or are they progressive, or where are they in that spectrum? And I think that was the beautiful thing of how Spike Lee directed that, because you really couldn't know. You really didn't know. Even toward the end, some of the scenes that happened,
Yes.
that people who have come along and finally embraced them still have this underlying feel of like, but I still wouldn't trust them to be like 100% behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. You almost, why am I forgetting his name right now?
Which one?
Philip. It was Kylo Ren.
Oh, the character or the actor?
The actor. I was trying to remember his actor name. The character is Philip.
Okay.
Because that's who the guy he sent to prison figured out who he was. And he said they called him Flip.
That's right. Are you looking for the police officer's name?
No,
actor?
just the actor's name.
Oh.
Because I want to say his police officer, his name was Philip. But him as a... I can't remember it. Anyways, you get that sense about him ever so often. Adam Driver.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, Adam Driver. Yeah. Driver's character, man. It was hard to tell where he landed a lot of times.
Oh yeah, yeah, but his character had another element of it. You know,
Yeah.
he had another story or another conversation starter to happen with him of this cultural identity that that for him and whether he has skin in the game.
In the
kind of
game,
thing.
yep. That's
And, which was a line
that was the
from-
statement, yeah.
And that stuck with me because I'm like, you know, it's so frustrating even in today's time to see so many events happen out and people really like that doesn't affect me, or I don't want it to affect me, so I'm not going to pay attention to it, or I shouldn't care. You know, where was it? Back when we kind of had a conversation about Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, an article came out about the gay community in New York and whether they should support or not, and what sides should people be on, and it was a very like we don't know kind of article because a lot of the same techniques and same struggles in the Pride Parade is based on the day that a protest and a beating happened. You know,
Right.
You know, it was a dark day that has been. You know, so there's parallels, yet at the same time, it's like, well, I'm not gonna be part of this other movement, and so there's still this element of separation between groups. It seems like between Hispanics, blacks, and Asians, and I mean even just socioeconomical groups that like it affects you, but I really don't want to deal with it.
Right.
And part of that has to do with like self-awareness, I
Mm-hmm.
think, and identity.
Okay. Knowledge of self.
Yeah.
Right.
And so this element of like, all right, who am I, and why should what happens to you affect me, or why should I care? And it's the thing is like it could be flipped at any time.
Yeah.
Like that could be happening to me, and it's like, should you care? Yeah. And I would want you to care.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I would
Absolutely.
want you to care, and I think that's where like even like scripture goes. You know, that whole like love your brother as yourself. You know, your neighbor as yourself. I think that's where some of that comes from. It's like, hey, stop being. If you're going to be selfish, be aware of how you want to treat yourself, and then treat other people that way.
Right. The same way.
You
Yeah.
know, like
yeah.
if you're going to be abused and you want someone to help or assist or give you some support, wouldn't you want that? You should do that for somebody else.
Right.
You know, it's that this element. And for him, he battles with that, his Jewish past, and whether that he
And how
wasn't
Jewish-
raised.
yeah,
and
how
how
Jew-
Jewish is he?
Yep.
And then I didn't see that coming. Of course, I didn't read the audio. I didn't listen to the audiobook, but I really didn't see that coming. And it was just kind of funny, the subtle, the other character, the really, I don't know, for stereotype, you know, quote unquote hick kind of character. That
Oh, the
really,
olive officer
Yeah,
in the group.
that really keeps asking him whether he's Jewish or not. You know, there's that subtle. It was really interesting. They never pointed out why he keeps asking him, but you know, Adam, he has some stereotypes that people associate with Jews.
Right.
And so it was funny that, or interesting, not so much funny, but it was interesting that those stereotypes weren't pointed out, but they were still referenced in a roundabout way.
Because everybody
And-
else noticed that stuff about him, but he never thought anything about it.
Right.
And especially that one guy, that's all he was suspicious about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he questioned if he was an officer once only because he asked questions.
Yeah.
But outside of that, he was just only worried about him being Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And he was even going to make him take the Jew lie detector. And I was like, oh, goodness gracious. And he was even willing to see if he was circumcised until the guy called him out about his sexuality.
Oh yeah.
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 He was even willing to go that far.
And talk about using one phobia to beat another.
Yeah, right. Yep, he definitely did. So they placed him on the special investigations again because, like we were talking about, he was token.
Mm-hmm.
They need him to get into the Kwame, who was essentially, known to most people as Stokely Carmichael. And so, they needed him to infiltrate a black rally, and to do that, they had to go ahead and move him up. And so I thought that was really interesting, and you see kind of the legs start to grow that's not when the story gets its legs.
Mm-mm.
But you definitely see the legs starting to grow, especially when he shows up, and you almost feel like he's doing the most to blend in, but it really ends up kind of working out for him. And I think that part of the movie, like we see maybe the end of evolution of a man that has been growing to that point, and then I think there was something in that visit that maybe shook him a little bit.
Oh yeah,
And I thought the actor did a good job of conveying that, because as he's sitting there watching the speech, you see him like almost change his belief system in a sense, or maybe strengthen it. You can't tell really what.
See, I couldn't tell if it was shaken or strengthening. I don't think it was strengthening. I think it was the beginning of him being shaken or stirred up.
Okay.
Because at the same time, you as an audience were watching the other police officers listening in.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a version of their response as well as his response, and how two groups kind of can hear the same line from a speaker and react in a different way.
All right.
Like a lot of the things the speaker ended up portraying and the way it was worded, as his character took it and was like, okay, that makes sense, but it's not as extreme as somebody else would take it, where the police officers outside listening in and they're hearing them almost more literally. And so it's like, well, that's a threat.
I do like that Adams character though, the Philip, when they said, do you think that he thought it was a threat? He did agree with Denzel Washington, or not Denzel. Dadgummit. I knew eventually, I swear eventually I was going to call him that.
John David.
Yeah. John David Washington. Yeah, I like that he agreed that, no, he thought he was just kind of doing a talking point, or kind of.
Yeah, and at that time you still didn't know if they were where in the spectrum they laid either.
Right.
So you didn't know
that was
if this
real
was
early.
A bounce into, these are going to be part of the conflict. These two guys are going to be part of the conflict, or are these two guys going to have conflict because they're going to be on two different sides of this coin? Or the way it kind of ended up going is like, this, we don't know where we stand, but it wasn't as bad as other people might think. And so you're still left with this, like, I'm not sure if I can trust these other characters. Heck, at one point, you kind of don't know if you can trust the main character. Because he's struggling with identity, with what he's hearing. And so you're wondering, as a person who maybe didn't do any research before about him, about Ron, that which direction did he go? Did he take this on because of this or because of that? And so you're sitting there going, how does this affect him? And to me, it was not an awakening, but it was more of a stirring of like questions.
Yeah, it was good, and they conveyed it really well. And I liked how first of all, they got the guy they got to play Kwame Ture or Stokely Carmichael. It was Dr. Dre. it was the cat they got to play Dr. Dre from the NWA series. And I think he was also in the in 24. I think he does the other version of 24. And so, got you. Okay. And so I thought he did a really good job at that speech and at that character. I really liked just the inflections, the way it was really well done out. But I think that added to that was, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the cinematography. When he said, what's the definition of beauty? And then he says something to the effect of, is it straight hair, a slim nose, and thin lips? And he's like, because none of you have that. And there's the point where it shows the three faces next to each other. It has the woman, and then like the man to her left, and then like the other woman, and like they're all like kind of three different shades of black. And then you see the lips and the nose, and he has kind of the black background, and you see faces like that a lot during that speech, and then it shows like them sitting in the audience, and it almost seems like the main character is almost also taking that in at the same time. It kind of it gives you that feeling a little bit. Yeah. But it really made that speech even more poignant at that point. And I thought that was really good.
No, I agree. It was stylistically, I guess, if that's a word. It kind of introduces you to that style. Yeah. And I actually resisted it at first because I was like, oh, it's kind of a he filmed it in a regular movie style, and then he got artistic with it, and so it was kind of weird for me. But then you soften up to it because then you start seeing, hopefully, some of his points about the structure and of the face, of the eyes, of the nose, of the lips. I think he did a very beautiful work on lighting and how the faces do pop out. Yes, Spike Lee did this thing where it is dark behind him, but you're able to watch this ginormous screen on at the movie theater or on your phone if you're like stealing it off the net, and like you get to see, you kind of do follow all the features. Yeah, and they switch to another person in male or in female. You start following those features and they're smooth. The light hits them just right to where they are beautiful. Like you kind of are challenged. You're either challenged or embracing the idea of, oh, it is beautiful. And so I'm hoping that anybody who resisted, that black is beautiful, maybe at that moment kind of like gets challenged. Right. Because it was a beautiful scene. I thought it was interesting that when they would go to him, it would kind of come out of that style, kind of like almost like you haven't accepted your beauty yet. And then it goes back. So it was really interesting, maybe some of the subtle aspects that Spike Lee was trying to do with that scene.
He did a really good job. So also on his what do we call it, stylistics? Okay, because that's a word now.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if a lot of the look of that film was done in post, or if it was with the actual like equipment they recorded it in. But I loved the look of the film, just the overall kind of look. Like it looked like an error.
I see what
like
you're saying.
Not an error, but an era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It definitely had that time period.
Yeah. It was like a clean. It was a clean like the look was a cleaner blaxploitation style look to it. Yeah. In a sense.
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. I noticed the music a lot.
Yes.
The flowing back and forth, and then even at I don't want to get too far ahead. I mean, I'm sure we probably should speed up a little bit, but like that ending where the chase happens, it's like 70s music, and it's like I enjoyed it. I had some other people that I talked to that didn't enjoy that. They wanted it to be like today's modern action movie kind of music, and it kind of threw them out of it. And I'm like, no, that threw me into it because that's where we're at. And
it is.
And then there's a scene that we'll talk in a little bit about that happens to the hero, that kind of stops him from being a hero at that moment, which is again that frustrating, like we make progress and then something stops us.
So kind of going back to, so real quick, the music of the time I thought was really done well when he invites the girl out later and he asked her to dance and everybody's singing the song and dancing. I thought that was real good. So to kind of move on, you could tell even when he wanted to do that investigation, when he originally wants to do the Klan investigation, and he just kind of stumbles into it by accident. Obviously, it just was kind of.
It was like brainstorming.
Yeah, and he saw an ad in favor of the Klan, but he asked for the extra men, and he says, "Well, we don't have it." And I do like that his officer, the officer he reports to was like, basically, we checked the books, you do got them in. And then he says, well, if anything's happened to any of my guys, it's on you. But I was thinking like, but isn't he one of your guys? Like,
right.
Yeah, he's one of your guys. Like,
right.
Y'all all on the same team. Like, play ball.
Right. That there's certain aspects of the story that maybe I need to read the book, or read more into his life, because Ron's history was missing out of the movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know why he was the way he was.
Right.
Because you see him as an adult, and he's joining the police force purposely, and he's jumping into these things, and he's jumping into battle this kind of culture,
mm-hmm.
and he wants to be part of it, but at the same time he's battling, and you don't know why he has that personality.
I think he gets into a little bit of his backstory. First of all, Adam Driver's character, when he goes and he starts talking about how Jewish he is or he isn't, they actually went back to that, because when he was saying you act like you don't have any skin in the game, he dropped it and walked off at that point. But then he comes back later and kind of explains that. Yeah. And I like that they did that. I think Ron did it. I mean, we didn't get much, but when he does the story about the kid with the nickname Buttermilk Biscuits, and he's talking to David Duke, I think, at that point.
He's relating his personal story and turning it into what a white family's experience would be.
Yeah,
and I love that, because it paralleled that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't freaking matter. We're all experiencing emotional aspects like this. And David, or what Duke, is it David Duke?
David Duke,
right?
yeah.
David Duke, like, connects with that story that he's telling, and he's like, I totally understand, and because there's human elements that happen, but for some reason we're blinded with the cultural and then color, and anyway.
Yeah, he was the kid that his father was like,
right,
yo, you can't hang out with him anymore. But he told it from the other kid's standpoint and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
And he's like, your father sounded like a great man, and he was,
dude.
Yeah,
that was when you watch it. If you haven't seen it, that scene did tear me up.
Did it?
Yeah, because
okay.
it's that element of like him remembering this moment in his life, at the same time remembering his father's reaction to it, and then he talks about, I think his parents were military, and so that threw me back to, like, I wonder what his dad's experiences were in the military.
Yeah.
And what trickled down to him. Obviously certain aspects that get brought up in the movie and in that character's character gets brought in. But at the same time, you wonder, because when he gets thrown into to go be undercover and visit the speech, they pick him, one, obviously because he's black and he's going to a communal black talk and speaker,
right?
But at the same time, they also ask him whether he, if he really is fluent in both
jive and the King's English or whatever he said. Yeah.
And I cracked up at that, because I remember as a Hispanic male experienced that in high school. Like I was kind of had moments where people told me pretty much I was a sellout, or didn't quite fit, or wasn't Mexican, or wasn't white enough, or wasn't Hispanic. All these things I just wasn't fitting in, and so it was this weird thing where I learned to kind of be bilingual, not in English and Spanish, but in like subcultures.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that when that happened, I was like, it kind of related to me in that sense, and I was like, yeah, we see that all over the place. We see that in within subcultures and within ethnicities, within communities, within the music scenes. I mean, you go to a hardcore scene and there's even subcultures within that.
Subcultures in there, yeah.
We deal with that with poverty, and there's like middle class speech, and there's other elements of like, can you speak middle class? That's actually a term, a question that happens when we're talking about poverty in different businesses and different organizations, because it's this level of like, can you relate?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it's really all about at the end, is can you relate, and I think in a sense is more, will they relate to you?
Mm-hmm. Can you communicate?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it was really interesting that they asked him that, and then for him to go, and I actually expected the next scene for him to be over the top,
There was a few occasions where I expected that of
him to come in and be like over the top, almost comedic jive.
Right.
You know, like, and so when he didn't do that, it kind of threw me off because that was my expectation. But at the same time, I was like, wait, this is a setup for him to be caught because he doesn't. And then I caught myself thinking, because he doesn't sound black, you know?
Right?
So
yeah.
I had to check myself even in that moment, and I was like, wow, you know, because people would do that to me as a Hispanic. I'm like, sometimes my accent comes out, sometimes it doesn't, and so I'm like, okay, all right, Spike. It was one of those moments, but it worked out because in that scene it worked out in the sense of she had to teach him some. She had to challenge him, not teach him, but she had to challenge him on his perspective and the girl he meets, right? And that creates a relationship, and that adds to that moment where in the speech he gets challenged within about the beauty of being black, the strength of being black, and just that strength of actively taking on action, you know. And it's not that action has to be violent, it's just that it has to be action.
Right.
But anyway.
So kind of looking at some of the stuff they talk about. So the members of the organization, which I thought was so funny that they wanted to be called the organization because they wanted to stay, kind of have this air about them, this shadow about them. But
it's not a business. It's not a hate group. It's a professional, like almost gentle, professional, organized group,
right? And
separate. And when he said that, I pictured the khakis and the polo shirts. But yeah, we'll get into that.
We'll definitely get into that. It's coming up because so it was kind of funny, but because they took out an ad in the newspaper. It wasn't a big ad, but they took it in under the name Ku Klux Klan because that was one of the things they hushed Adam Driver's character Philip over. But I wanted to go to a point where they were talking, they didn't say PC culture, but they were referring to how things were PC, and he says you can't even call coloreds colored anymore. He's like, they want to be called blacks or African Americans. And I thought that was such a now thing to say. Like, it's like saying, like, oh, you can't call them, you can't call it transsexual or, this and that anymore. You got to call them, and then the gender pronouns and, and I get sometimes for people, it gets confusing.
Yeah.
Because even somebody in the know, it is a little, there's a lot of things on the spectrum that, I myself don't understand.
Right.
I let it be because I let it be, but I guess I let it be because it doesn't bother me. But there's a lot of stuff that I don't know, people feel really weird about, and they make it this, I think, a bigger deal than it has to be. Because for me personally, I don't know what they're so worried about. I'm sure they don't know a ton of them, and it's not an issue they have to deal with on a regular, but they do like to complain about it. And I thought it was, what they were saying was kind of a thing that not harkens back, but I guess speaks to today still, that conversation they were having, like, because that's still a conversation that goes on now. Is they were saying it, like I said, that was about 54 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I think 54. So it was just after King had gotten shot. Kennedy was dead already, and so
because they do reference that.
Both of them. They also do Martin Luther King, which there was a politician recently. I don't know if you remember this, that did that. He said in a television interview,
you have to show me afterwards.
And he calls him Martin Luther King, and he's like, "Oh, excuse me, I meant King." but he is old enough to be one of those guys talking in that scene,
right?
And so it was.
I'm doing this book study kind of thing for. And it doesn't matter what for, but. Two things that I've dipped into some research lately. One, why we avoid things that are challenging or painful.
Okay.
And does that allow us to, like, we just as a human nature, we tend to avoid things that are negative or they cause us pain. And I'm not talking about like physical pain, but like hearing bad news, it causes like a certain type of pain.
Right.
So we rather not hear bad news, right? We rather just shut it down and maybe go back to sleep and forget the world, right? So there's this element of avoidance, and the question becomes, is there ignorance? There's the comment of ignorance is bliss, but ignorance, should it be an excuse or not on certain things like what you're bringing up? So is it ignorance is bliss, and so I don't have to deal with it, or ignorance is okay as long as you're willing to learn from it or willing to embrace new information?
I definitely think the second one.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't, me and my brother have pointed out that ignorance isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes somebody just doesn't know.
Right.
Like,
it's legitimate.
Yeah.
And if something's legitimate, that's fine. But that
what
second,
happens,
how you respond is where it's the most important. How you respond to anything really is where your heart is, in a sense, and where your personality. I think that's where it's challenging, and sometimes challenging means I have to reevaluate myself, or I have to reevaluate a thought, or maybe I need to learn that I'm in the wrong, or maybe I'm in the right. I don't know, but that unknown it may be part of that research I was looking at, maybe part of that painfulness of like it's most likely bad news for me, so I'm not gonna. At that point, it's embracing ignorance and not learning from it, and that's where that danger becomes very evident, and especially in today's society. So then, I think having that element of ignorance, but if you're willing to open yourself up and learn, then you're not. You can be ignorant, but that doesn't mean you're an adversary to a cause or to a culture or to
Right.
If you're willing to learn.
Right.
But if you're ignorant and you're not willing to learn, then you might want to evaluate whether you're really not an ally or really not a blissful, ignorant person at that point. Because I think you know enough to be ignorant on purpose, and that's
accountable for your ignorance. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
And so certain things like certain words and terminology come into that, like gypsy. It's a derogatory term, but people, it's been that people have tried to evolve it into meaning, world traveler or like
kind of like a bohemian kind of
bohemian kind of like the way you dress. It's very gypsy and but
almost kind of a hippie-ish
thing. Yeah. But the Romani culture that it's talking about,
mad disrespectful.
It's that's and there's different articles of whether we get the word gypped from the word gypsy. Well, what's gypped? What are we really saying? What's the cultural aspects that we're really? It's really coming out of what we have established a gypsy to be.
Right.
And it's not okay. It's not a gypsy. It's a real human being from Romani. And so it's like this person, this group of people from Europe and the North American area is being described in certain ways, but we've tried to change the language, and I don't know if I've yet to find a word that's changed from a negative to a positive, and it's stayed 100% positive.
Yeah.
I haven't dug too deep into it.
It hasn't happened because we tried. Well, not we, but
you specifically.
Yeah. but it's tried with nigga.
Right.
And like, I don't care how you dress it up. Like it's only, for me, it only is kind of one meaning, because so they try to make it as a term of endearment, or I say they.
I was about to ask you, what do you mean by they? Challenge.
So we try to make it a term of endearment, okay? But there's only kind of one way, like, it is used. And like there's, my nigga, there's, these are my niggas and stuff like that. But when you say those niggas, it's not positive anymore, right? Because you're not referring to them as your friends, like, oh man. Or when you say these niggas is tripping, and you're not kind of being funny about it, because you can be like, yo, these niggas is tripping, right? But if you be like, yo, these niggas is tripping, like it takes on a totally different context then.
But even when with a more positive twist of that term, it's still a reference
Yeah.
to trying to. It's like it's a reference to trying to flip a reference.
Yes, it is.
And so it's like you're still the original reference is still there.
Yes.
It's still
You're
solid.
actively still trying to turn it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so.
Nope, I'm with you. I haven't found one yet.
No. Yeah.
Yep. Even women, being able to use the B word in reference of each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they do that.
Right.
But it's still a knockdown.
Right. And especially for a female being called the B word, that's a very historical thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's done on purpose, especially when it's to a female.
Right.
And so, not to jump into politics too much, but like when Amorosa got called a dog, and people were like, "What's the big deal?" It's like, no, historically, when females get called a female dog,
right,
it means something different. It means more.
It means
and
way
so
more.
we have to understand the different elements of where it lands. Now, if I'm not part of a certain culture, and it goes back to that ignorance, right? I have a choice at that point.
Right.
Do I listen to the debate within that culture and kind of try to be sensitive to that, or do I just go back to my own, like, oh, it doesn't mean anything, and intentionally ignore it? At that point, you're not ignorant. You're just
Yeah.
you're ignorant. Yeah. So.
Yeah. You're ignorant. I like that.
And so, yeah, that's why Chris Rock's famous, comedy routine was just people related to that, and not just people in the black community. So at that point, it's like, we all understand.
We got it. Yeah, we
what
all got
it means, whether we want to admit it or not. And so maybe there's not really ignorance, but whatever.
Kind of jump ahead to what I thought was a big point of I think the most obvious point of juxtaposition that takes place in the film is when when Adam Driver's character finally gets initiated in, and they watch the propaganda film, and then Harry Belafonte is telling the story. Yeah. And he's telling the story about all this that happened, and then there's the propaganda film, and then they both end with chants of white power and black power. With both with hands raised in the air, because one was the fist and then one was the salute. Right? And I mean, what Spike Lee could fuck right off right there. It was so good. It was so good. And I don't know, like Harry Belafonte, like part of me is hoping and not hoping like that was a real story he was telling, and he just happens to be connected to that picture. But I mean, what a story. Yeah. And he's telling that, and you see the actual pictures of that, and they talked about how they they cut his genitals off in public, they beat him in public, and then they dipped him, they tossed oil over him, and then they over and over again dipped him in and out of fire.
Yep. And I've seen a lot of images from that era, so I'm trying to remember back to the movie exactly. Mm-hmm. But the images that get stuck in my mind are the Sunday best dress at these events.
Yes.
And so it's this.
It was like a day out.
Yeah. It's let's have a picnic and lynch somebody. It was a different mentality, and it was, but very embraced. And so this comparison of these two things, these two stories, and one Hilary Belafonte, one of my absolute heroes.
Oh,
and
dude.
Anyway, even from whatever. Yeah, I was like, no way.
I didn't expect him to be in there.
No, I didn't expect him to.
Yeah.
And then for him to just have that voice and that story, and just it you do wonder if that's his story or that he had a deeper connection to that story.
Yeah, the way he tells it, you don't know.
Yeah, and the Muppets have telephonic. It wasn't a Muppet episode of Harry Belafonte on that.
There
one.
you go. Yeah,
but that comparison made me wonder where Spike Lee was going with that. It made me wonder if he was maybe making a statement. I don't think he was making a hard statement on really almost any subject. I think he was putting a lot of different levels out at different times and saying, here you go, think about this, have a conversation about this. Because people are having these conversations.
right.
And I think that means success I think that's the success of this piece. But like that comparison of, which one do you fear? And do you fear one or the other, or do you fear both? Are they parallel alike because they're both lean toward evil or toward good?
Right.
And it's that,
or is one, because one was shown like they watched this propaganda film and it was a blackface and there was a bunch of goofy shit going on in it, and you're almost like it's almost like they cheered it on, and then the one is telling this horrible story that happened in his youth and to somebody that he either knew or was close with. You never get to sense how close he was with that person.
Yeah.
Or if they were just two black men in the same place and one didn't get away and the other had to get away. But he said he's kind of saying that he watched from a distance, still trying not to be caught. And so was the other out of kind of I guess they're both out of empowerment. It just one is.
Well,
that's.
Would you argue that both sides at that point, at that imagery, that both are doing what they're doing for the good, like in their opinion, and like that's their truth in a sense, like they're saving the world.
Yes.
And so it's this like, no, we have to, join together and combine and put forces together, and because without us, the world will collapse or whatnot, And
right.
So they're doing this out of this passion of what's best for everybody else, even if other people don't see it, And it's this element of like both kind of build. So then my question becomes like, is it about the actual action after that, like, or was Spike Lee saying these are hard extremes with and these are their motivations, the story or the film,
right?
These are motivating factors in two extremes that look a lot alike.
I want to see it again. Not you bringing that point up. It's still kind of funny because even though one, there's that saying that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Right.
And that lady even compared them to the Boston Tea Party in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She said this is the second Boston Tea Party. And that was kind of
turning point. This is the second turning point. This is the second set of freedoms. This is the second,
Yeah, and she kind of points out to kind of what I just said, is that was what the Boston Tea Party was. It was one man's terrorist being another man's freedom fighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they had, boarded ships and destroyed, items and stuff like that. And so to the empire at the time, they were terrorists. But, for the people over here that they were fighting for, they were freedom fighters.
Right. Isn't that the conflict of every revolution?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Just about.
So then, who is it? Does it go to the winner writes the history, or does the good guy win?
Oh, it's funny because I believe the good guy almost hardly ever wins. But or at least it's not deemed so. I think the best on that day might win, or sometimes it's just the strongest, because sometimes, you know, it's the small, whether it be numbers or the size or whatever, versus the very large.
Mm-hmm.
You know, David doesn't always win that fight. David won that fight on that day.
Gotcha.
Right? But David doesn't always win the fight. Sometimes Goliath wins because Goliath is, 8 foot and 300, something pounds. Yeah,
Sometimes David runs out of his 5 rocks.
Yeah, sometimes David runs out of rocks.
Deal.
Yep, absolutely.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so but I think in reality we do know that even though it is at that point, I won't say a matter of opinion, but this side felt they were doing what they had to, on this side. Most of the time, not every time, there is a right side. Now, sometimes the truth is in between.
Yeah.
And I agree. That's where it lands most of the time. That's where I will try to land most of the time, is in between. It's kind of like when people say you're not as good as you think you are, and you're not as bad as most people say you are. You're usually somewhere in between, right? But to the point of that scene, though, I mean, just what a scene, and the build of it too. There was, as you've kind of taught me in the past about crescendoing and building and stuff, it did a really good job of that.
Yeah, it did.
And especially with the introduction of Harry Belafonte, and he had the low voice kind of thing.
Yeah.
Man,
it was a great comparable scene, like low voice, high energy, high group of organized white men coming in with their families, almost like we're about to go,
like the Sunday
popcorn.
school. Yeah.
Let's get the popcorn. We're about to watch this movie, and there, it's a little intense because the main character is having to sneak around and watch what they're doing, so you don't know if he's going to get caught or not. And so that's that extra element. But then he builds this other element of like the quiet, almost Christ-like telling the story scene on one side, and then like this big media aspect and almost circus-like feel to the other side. Yet at the same time, at the end, they both have similarities, even in images, like you said about the hands in the black power and white power aspect.
Yep.
But let me make a quick comment about the movie they were watching. That's they were referencing the history of what was it
Birth
called?
of a Nation?
Yeah, Birth of a Nation.
Yep.
And how that movie really stirred up and reinforced this agenda that people really
I say they
fell
had
in love with.
insurgents, yeah.
Right. And it made me think of, I want to say it's G.K. Chesterton makes this comment, and I can't remember the quote exactly, but like he talks about how if you want to know what's been happening in your land, you go to the politicians, but if you want to know what's happening in your land, like now, you go to the poets and the artists, because they're connected to what's happening now. That's where their emotions are. They're responding to the now, where it takes time for politics to catch up, and so their politics and policies sometimes are behind the times. So there's that element, but at the same time, it made me wonder, because there's that other quote about, or art imitates reality, but art also changes reality.
Right.
And so I think that film or that movie or whatever, that propaganda, they took a new media. Film was new and it was exciting. They connected and connected to this aspect of possible history and reinforce negative aspects. And so that was the current time. The art was imitating that time, but at the same time, it influenced and reinforced the culture to where I think it made the KKK like blossom right after that film, and people, even if they never even thought about the KKK, actually ended up joining and being part of it. And so media, the irony of him showing that while we're sitting in a movie theater watching this movie, kind of like, I wonder where this film is going to take us. And here we are talking about it. And we're in coffee houses talking about it. And maybe in whispers, because we don't want the person next to us listening in.
Right.
You know, because we're insecure. But at the same time, we're talking about it. So there's an effort. It was kind of, to me, there was this element of irony, and it was kind of badass how this has kind of happened, that, you know, within the film, there's this element that happened, but it might be happening again in a different way.
Well, yeah. So kind of leaning into the end of this movie, right?
Okay, yeah.
There was a point though before that where the guy talks about David Duke's big thing is mainstreaming, because they were talking about, well, why would he want to be a politician? Them knowing who he is, because he wasn't shy about it, and they talked about how David Duke will become a politician and he'll say the things that he keeps saying, but he'll make it palatable and people will hear it more and it'll be regular. And he's like, do you ever think that somebody would elect somebody like David Duke? And he said, you being who you are, sitting here saying that to me, I would call you a fool if you sit here and think they wouldn't.
And in 1988 happens.
and I would even say, like, I mean, it was just, I thought that was a really heavy kind of moment. I mean, it was only that quick.
Yeah.
You could have missed that.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And I'm hoping people took out their phones in the middle of the movie and actually looked it up.
Yeah.
At that moment, and like, no, that can't. No. Oh, just that moment of like, no, yeah, it happened.
No, it happened.
The interesting part about, for me, in that, connected to that scene, was a few scenes before that. I think the chief was giving him compliments about how there's been less cross burnings.
Yes.
And it's in a lot of different events have kind of gone down because they've been able to kind of get in there and kind of I don't know, manipulate or
there you go, kind of skirt some of that stuff. Yeah.
And so there hasn't been any cross burnings. And it was that comment was really interesting to me, because it showed me that they knew, the police department knew, you know, whether they had some of those people in the police department or not. But there's this element of knowing that when that happens, that's a negative thing. It wasn't a cross burning, cool, we all support that. No, it was this thing causes more issues in this area.
Right.
Or it's a negative thing. You know, so it's kind of cool that hasn't been any, which made a big flip later on when you do see one, right? But like, so this element of like, we know that the KKK and them having these ceremonies are a bad thing for our community. In that split moment when he said, thanks for, you know, they've gone down, he said that to me. That's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
Which in parallel, when he's like, why would somebody that knows all this, you know, and it's almost like this brand is out there, we know it's negative, yet how can this person change, you know, go into the politics and change the way he presents himself and rebrands him in a different way? And it's to me, it's just that, you know, you get away from the loud stereotype and you make it more subtle, you make it cleaner, you make it more, you know, you mix it with other truths, you know, and so which is one of the tricks of lying, right?
Right. Best way to hide lies between two truths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, you know, he said this, but he also said this, and I agree with that, and that's true. And so, and after a while, it's like, well, you know, he says more truths than not, so he's an expert, or he's, you know, and so we really end up, and it's a really subtle, soft way of doing it. You rebrand it, you make it the guy next door, you can have a beer with him, and there you go.
Well, that's even kind of what they tried to do to Driver's character in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
You know, let's have a beer, or, you know, let's hang out, just meet up.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. They especially the main guy. You know, besides him wearing the white power shirt when you first see him, he really tried to make himself kind of a. He seemed the less evil of all of them.
Are you talking about
the guy who he first talked to on the phone?
Oh,
that ended up stepping down as kind of the leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the guy. He was the guy you borrow a lawnmower from.
Yep.
You know, no matter what color you're at.
Right.
You know, because he'll deal, he'll work, he'll tolerate. Where compared to the other member who won't tolerate anything, right? And so the dangerous one is the one that gets you in their house. You know, it's that vampire style. You know, it's like oh, come on in the house.
Come on in, yeah.
Like, well,
You've already let me in now.
Yeah. And so it's the psychological aspect of like, but again, going back to the first part of our conversation, we didn't know who was where. We just knew he for sure was because he answered the phone.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep.
He answered the phone and called back, and he right off the bat. All right, you know the big brand of KKK and the costumes and the fire and what we do, but if you're really going to be part of us,
you got to.
We're the organization.
Yes.
Now that you've embraced the big call, let's get you in there to where you can handle it in a professional way almost.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that you saw that even then. And so when I did see an interview with Topher
Grace.
Yes. About him playing Duke. And he said that people keep asking him like, how'd you do it? And he talks about his struggles, but at the same time, for me, as watching him talk about it, it's almost like he's trying to make it harder. I'm not saying that he leans any way. I'm just saying that the character is so kind of nice guyish.
Yeah.
And the actor is that way as well. You know, it was kind of like watching the 70s show teenager grow up and now he's
the Grand Wizard.
You know, that was him. It's same kind of dorky, almost fun personality that, you know, you're not going to take him to a club, but you are going to talk about, oh, geez wheeze, you know, let's have a barbecue and kind of like be okay with him being this dorky white kid. And so I think it was a little bit easier in a sense of the acting aspect, but when he had to really get into the negative sides of what the script was saying, you know, he talks about his personal struggle on that and how Spike Lee kind of helped him kind of be okay being able to say what he's saying, you know, to a casting crew black actors and a black director going, yes, say that and do it this way and go for it. And he's like, all right, you know, I can see the struggle there, but at the same time, it was like that 70s kid, 70. You know,
watching the kid. Was Eric from the?
It was like watching Eric just be older, and I think that was the danger of him. You know, of this character, or not this character. He's not a character.
He's not a character. Yeah,
he's a real person.
Yeah.
You know, he was subtle. He was enjoyable. He was he was Happy Days kind of style. I mean, you know, it was just he was not threatening, and I think that tends to be an element that throughout history has always been. The person that maybe isn't as threatening gets to be heard more than maybe someone who pushes the envelope and then becomes threatening or is perceived as threatening. So I think that element also kind of got brought up in subject matter for me of him as Ron coming in, and especially at the very end when he has to protect him, the way he dressed up. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too different from how his dress was the rest of the show. Right. But he touched it up a little bit.
Oh yeah. It was definitely more. He turned up the Soul Brother.
Yeah, he did. He turned up the Soul Brother on that one.
Yes, he did.
And that difference of how other people responded to that. And I wondered, you know, when Ron and his girlfriend, or I guess they were dating at that point, were walking through town just having a conversation, you know, I almost wish there was a scene where somebody, maybe like a white person passed them and went to the other side of the street, kind of a moment of like, are these people threatening? And these are just a lovely couple going out flirting and having a date.
I think they had just seen the movie or something like that, maybe.
And so there's that. I wondered about like if Spike Lee was going to touch on that, but he didn't have to, because my brain touched on it just in comparing those two characters and wondering how people respond to them, especially in Colorado Springs.
Right. Yeah. It was obviously a different Colorado Springs than it is now, because yeah obviously.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten better up there. I tend to travel through there a little bit easier. But dude, after experiencing,
I'm telling you,
that sticker and kind of being like, I could vanish and nobody would know. You know?
Yeah.
You become very aware, and you do see subtle hints of people's response, especially with traveling with my family. You know, and so it's just one of those elements.
So when you say especially traveling with your family, explain that to so those people who aren't me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Who's not you? Yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
No. Yeah. I'm married. I have a beautiful wife. She's a 6 foot tall white woman, blonde hair, and my daughter is half white and half black. And she took the side of darker skin, so she looks like her mom, but she's black, and she has the curly hair that she likes to flow out, and she's also 6 foot. And then there's me, short Hispanic stumpy guy, right? So when we go out, it doesn't matter who's around us; they're staring, of like what is happening,
what is
here?
going here, yeah.
What's
the
going
dynamic
on here? What's this about? Like, who kidnapped who? And so it's kind of one of those weird little things. We did travel outside of the country once, and coming back, I will give props to Germany. They when we crossed through their borders and in their airport, they had more questions for Kaylee, my daughter, than anybody else, because they wanted to make sure she was safe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. I was like, no, you can ask her all
no,
she
please.
wants. Yeah. She's not being trafficked. It's cool. I'm like, and you don't mess with German military and police officers. So,
no, I wouldn't
guess
so. Yeah.
Because but yeah, so we actually changed our last name to where we're all having the same last name, and I adopted her, and she's my daughter. So it's like having this element of like my wife and my daughter. So when I talk about my daughter at work or anywhere else, it's like, I love my daughter, she's awesome. But then when they find out, oh, that explains why you word this way, or why this means more to you. It's like, no, that should mean, how people respond to somebody of a different color. It shouldn't matter whether my daughter's black or not.
Right.
Like, it should matter to you just as much as it matters to me. And it didn't. I'm hoping that it didn't matter to me less before they were in my life.
I don't think it did.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't think it did. Because before that, it was. I don't want to say I was your black daughter, but I was. It was a similar thing. It was you, and then there's another white guy. So.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And then a black person. Yeah.
Walking around Comic-Con.
Yeah. I was gonna say right. Yeah, having run into Gambino concerts and Comic-Con and all these different other places, and poetry, national poetry events.
Slams.
Yeah. So it was the three of us. Yeah. Shout out to Sean. Yeah. Ira. Yeah. So it's always kind of been your circle.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess
you just married into it. Yeah. Oh, you definitely have a type. That's funny.
But we're hyper aware. At least the parents are. My daughter does a good job of just doing what she does.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think she has that element of like, I just need to do what I need to do, which is really cool. Because I think if me growing up with my situations and my life experiences, I think I made me more self-aware, and I'm hoping that in a positive way, she's acting out in the sense of like, I have goals and wishes, and I'm going after them because that's what you do.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you look like. or what people respond to you. Like, I'm going to go after it. So I'm really proud of her. It's been really cool to see her grow up. But yeah, going anywhere. There's it. I remember telling my wife that, I was like, Steph, one of the things that's really weird is it doesn't matter where we go, we get some kind of look. And what I mean is like curious, to all the way to the range of like, that shouldn't happen.
Disgust.
Disgust. And so, but the weird part is what I mean by like literally anywhere we go. Like if it's a predominantly Hispanic group, I get similar reactions on all spectrums because I'm with two very different cultures. Mm-hmm. And then if it's a black community, if it's a white community, it's like we can't go anywhere. It's like maybe we should go hang out with my Asian friends and just like, hey, let's go hang out with our friends from Laos and just, at least there we all feel the same way or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And so,
that's funny.
We're really trying to not push. We didn't get married to push the envelope. We just got married.
Yeah.
But we went to Colorado Spring, say a few years ago, and we stopped by this Irish pub, which I always do, and have a drink there. It became a tradition, and the conversations have changed depending on who the bartender is, and you sit there, and usually Irish pubs are a predominantly white restaurant, predominantly.
It's in the name.
Yeah. Somehow a lot of them have red hair. No, and it was just kind of like I always enjoy the conversations, but I also like to sit back and watch people.
Yes.
And just kind of watch and learn history and do that element. And I think, some of the conversations, some of the looks, some of the interactions happen. I can go somewhere this week and get the same reactions and same responses that I saw in this film. And I think that's one of the elements that Spike Lee was kind of bringing back into the conversation, especially toward the end, especially at the end.
At the end.
But within the story, there are little touches of different questions that he brought up that had to do with culture, identity, because that's another element that our family struggles with. I don't know if struggle is the right word, but our family, interacts and deals and sometimes battles, but sometimes embraces is like the different aspects. Are we Croatian? Are we Hispanic? Are we black? Are we, what element and what label maybe, or
right.
what, can we create this new thing?
Yeah.
It's like, what, there's a lot of running jokes, but I probably shouldn't share them. So like,
no, but you know what? That is, we definitely need to set that up as a conversation for another time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I definitely think, no, I'm not dodging it right now, but I definitely think, man, you're saying all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is good stuff. Like, but anyways, continue.
No. I think that challenge of self-awareness and self-culture kind of lined up with the other character, the police officer that was the white character. Mm-hmm. That his battle with being Jewish and how Jewish is he, and to me that was an element that, besides whether he had skin in the game that we talked about earlier, but also like, I have a few black friends who deal with that too, like because of what neighborhood or what area, town, or if they went to a certain school that they were the only one of the few black guys in there or girls in there. Are they supposed to take on this persona, or do they, which persona, kind of that internal struggle. And because I remember I had a certain version of that for myself.
Right.
And so I related to him in that moment when he had to be challenged and he had to question like his Jewishness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, who he was.
Yeah.
Like who he was and who he maybe thought he was. So you mentioned the end of the movie. First of all, I liked it's like the Spike Lee shot when they open the door, when they both got their guns drawn and they open the door and it does the shot that's pulling them down the hallway.
Oh yeah.
That's like the Spike Lee shot. Like it's almost like they're being pulled while the camera moves at, and they're coming down the hallway and then you see the cross in the distance, and then you realize, and that was after he made the joke to David Duke, like, haha, it was me the whole time. And then it was almost kind of returned to him like, haha, well, now we know who you are kind of thing. And then, if I wasn't mistaken, was that Adam Driver still in the group? Like I said, I want to go back and see it again, but it showed like the black eyes in the hood, and then it shows kind of under the hood, and it looks like it's Adam Driver's character still in there. But I would doubt it because
I wouldn't say no.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the real life story is either. Maybe he stayed in there longer undercover because they realized who he was, but they really everything came out right.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
So no, yeah, he wouldn't be in there.
And then the fact that he kind of doesn't get the girl.
No.
Yeah.
No. That was really interesting too because it was an element of love interest yet almost dualistic, respectful.
Yeah.
Because she was so
principled in a sense. Yeah.
Principled, educated, strong personality. I mean, lovely. She was an equal in thought and conversation.
Yes.
And that especially was nice to see because of their struggle with each other. Can you be a cop and be fighting for the cause?
Right.
At the same time. And that conversation was a great conversation. And it didn't conclude with anything because it was a conversation starter for us to continue afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that element of like, can you change the system from
the
within?
inside? Yeah.
Can you affect it? I don't know. Give me your thoughts on that.
So I had, like I said earlier, I had this internal conversation about that and what it would be like to have that conversation. And man, I'm still not sure. I think it depends on what system that you're trying to change. In some cases, it really might be a hard no. And especially at the time he was in, and even now though, that's the big deal with police forces. Because a lot of people do believe in community policing and the officers policing that community at least are from that area or maybe look like the community, maybe understand. Charlemagne, the radio personality, he always says a lot, with the Mike Brown situation. That would have been different if it had been a black officer that maybe grew up around there, knew Mike's grandma, stuff like that. Because, originally all that started was because they were walking in the middle of the street.
Right.
And so he was like, if it would have been a black officer or somebody, at least a white officer from that area, he'd have been like, Mike, what are y'all doing in the middle of the street? They had a, back and forth. Right. He'd have been like, all right, I'm going to go tell your grandma, I'm supposed to go over there anyway, kind of thing. And it would have been different. And that's what community policing almost should look like. But it's a hard thing now because, there's a level of distrust between minority communities and the police. And so it's still a situation where it is hard to go into the system, or at least hard for people to think they can go into the system and do change. And she made up a great point. Like, can you change a system that is intrinsically set up against you?
Right.
Right. And that at its core, like, already doesn't like you. So you're already going to be behind you. Like, you're behind outside of that system. Like, if you're trying to change the system of something that is contained, right? Because we all live in a system, but like if you join a something, like it would be easier for me to change the system of a retail store, in a sense, than it would be possibly like something like policing or politics. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I struggled with this question, which is probably why I threw it at you. Like, you talk about it.
No, fair enough.
Well, because you in this movie, this film shows it when he first starts at the job and gets placed in evidence room and some of that early aspect, because that's what would happen. You go into a system that pushes back on you automatically anyway. To make progress, sometimes you have to play by their rules, whoever they are, or whatever the system is. And so then the question becomes, at what point are you one of them, quote unquote?
Yeah.
Or
are you still changing
changing the system?
Yep.
And so I wonder if one person can change the system, if one person coming into something can change the system. I want to say no, unless that person comes in as the boss.
Yeah.
But that doesn't just happen.
Yeah, that doesn't just happen.
That doesn't just happen. So this element of getting into a system and playing the game to get enough respect to make minor changes. So that means if there is a possible way of changing the system as an individual, it's a very slow process. And I think that slow process maybe because of having to play the game would end up having a lot of stress in the sense of how other people within your community view you. Because you're playing the game.
You're playing the
so
game.
So now you're one of quote unquote them.
Yeah. You're moving like them. You're looking like them. You're acting
Right.
like them.
And
like you said, whoever them is. Yeah.
Right. And so there's an element, I think, that it has to do with a multiple amount of people getting involved in a system or in a group, or I think if more minorities got involved in politics and got into politics, and then the subject matters slowly change, because now there's more people playing the game.
Yeah.
And it's not just one-sided. It's now we have to consider the white community, we also have to consider other communities.
Yeah.
And so I think that conversation once it becomes such a normal thing, I think at that point you start really changing. But until I think that happens, I don't know. I don't know how easy, quote unquote easy. I don't think there is an easy way of changing a thing from within.
Not at all.
I think it would have to be an intentional large shift. But then the larger the shift, the more resistance you get. So I don't know.
There was a question I asked back at it. Was it TPPC? Is that?
Oh yeah.
Because I went to. So again, for those who aren't us.
Oh yeah.
What is it? Teen Pregnancy Prevention Coalition.
Yeah, the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Coalition. Yeah.
Okay. And we were talking about that one day, and I'm not gonna say the lady's name, but there was a lady that was talking, and I raised my hand in question, and I said, well, how far back do we need to go? And she didn't say anything about going back, but it was a genuine question I had. And so she was like, well, what do you mean? I asked her, so how far do we go back to change the rules? Because this teen pregnancy thing has been happening, I said, for as long as any of us can remember. And before that, I was like, we've all had the grandparent or the aunt, the great aunt or somebody talk about how, like, they met their grandfather at 15, and he got a full-time job, and they had kids and stuff like that. And I said, we would be fools if we thought that this world wasn't moved forward, or if this world was only moved forward by responsible and mostly consenting adults. I was like, most monarchs we know, they were all kids, most of them. No, I can't say all of them, but a large amount of royalty and monarchs and all this stuff. this happened at a young age. To be a 30-something person, you were really old at a point, you know, and this all happened. And even in this day and time, there are still child brides and stuff like that. That's still like considered a precious commodity. I'm doing the quotation fingers because I don't agree with that. But
Right.
And so the same thing is the question I would have: how far do we have to go back to change these rules? And that's another part of all of this. It's like that's a lot of deprogramming, a lot of deprogramming, even within yourself. And that was another conversation that they had, you know. And I'm not going to trail too far off in the weeds about it, but when Stokely Carmichael or Kwame was giving the speech, and he's talking about deprogramming yourself to find the beauty in you and stuff like that, instead of living by somebody else's definition of something. Like, that program isn't just there for those in power, because that is a program in the sense like you're given a program, like it's the day to day, but then there's a deeper meaning to this programming.
Right.
And it's the reason why have you seen Sammy Sosa lately?
No.
My man, look Sammy Sosa up.
What? Okay.
Yeah. he's gonna do it right now. Look, and all you gotta do is put in Sammy Sosa. I'm definitely gonna take a pause for this because I couldn't believe this. But yeah, that's a part of it. And you know, Sammy is giving us a speech about how he's happy with who he is now, and I'm like, okay, but I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
You know, and so you know, I mean, I guess if you want to be whoever you want to be.
Well, yeah.
But
and I think that adds to that programming aspect, like similar to our conversation at the beginning of the podcast about terms and negative words, whether they turn positive, like gypsy. You know, that if the word gypped and manipulator and con artist kind of synonymous with gypsy, and gypsy is a term put on this group of people, then psychologically we're being programmed to
be okay with
it. Yeah,
yes,
exactly. To just, that's what it is.
Right.
And
like that's what it is. That's what it's always said.
That's how it is. And the how it is idea, the how it is comment is so heartbreaking and like nerve-wracking in my stomach, because isn't the whole point of, like, I really love the Jewish culture, because there's that there's a quote or a comment that said, if you find 3 rabbis, you have 4 opinions. The reason that quote exists is because that whatever they're talking about is fluid. You know, they're going to question and talk and have opinions on how things work, even if they're talking about like 1,000-year-old scripture or modern day concepts in politics.
Right.
It's this fluidity of asking questions and learning from it. That's where some of that comment comes from. And the fact that we don't do that here, like as much in our current communities, where we don't have these conversations that challenge we just avoid. And I think that there's this element of like, okay, if it's better to be a certain way, like, you know, if Sammy has less struggles when now that he's much lighter, you know, and he's maybe reached a pinnacle of a success because of that, you know, now he doesn't have to deal with certain negative things. He might have been programmed at this point to that's success, that's the next level, you know, to be white, I guess. I don't know. I just learned about Sammy.
Yeah, just
I was like, I'm literally just looking at the picture right now, and you know, the same comments we used to make about Michael Jackson, and the questions of like, are you doing this because you're unhappy, or are you doing this because, you know, if you look at this way because of your life experiences in the industry, in your world, that it's better to not have the beautiful black nose than it is to have the Michael Jackson, whatever that was.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, and it's hard to deal with that as a layman, who can't afford what Sammy Sosa or Michael Jackson can. We're not in that world, but but at the same time, we struggle with certain levels of that. Like we all want to belong.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a general element that we all as human beings have. We all want to belong, so we'll wear the right clothes. Teenagers will want a certain shoe size or a certain shoe type, or adults want certain pickup trucks or cars or clothes, or and it doesn't stop. Business people in meetings want certain types of suits, or certain things that allow them to be accepted by their peers. If we're constantly doing that, how can we grow and break some of these barriers here?
It's a good question.
I don't even know if that question made sense the way I just rambled on at that point.
It mmade plenty of sense. It's just
I don't know.
I think we should leave them with that. That's like the Spike Lee ending. Like you don't you don't leave them with a real answer. You just kind of
one of the things that the Spike Lee ending of this film did for me was, like, one, there's a scene right at the very end when the whole chase is happening and the hero's about to save the day, and I don't even know if I want to ruin it in the spoiler aspect when he gets stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like,
it was poetic.
It was poetic. It was my heart dropped. My I don't cuss that much, but oh my God, like, blah, mother, I was one of the few people in the movie theater, thank God, but like, I was like, really? This you're going to use this pivotal moment to make that point, and then at the same time it's like, well done.
Yeah.
Well done, Spike. That perfect moment to make that point. The hero can't even be the hero.
Yeah. So it was great.
So
what a moment.
And then at the very end, it transitions from that scene to where it has that element of 1970. What year was that?
Right about there. Like, yeah.
Like that kind of filming into, and then it kind of pans out, and you think it's still that era, and it's the film from a year ago.
Absolutely.
In the United States. And so it's like, oh, where are you taking me now? Because, I wanted the film to be over. It's like, here's the beginning, middle, end, conclusion. Hero was kind of a hero, and things are wrapping up. Oh, still, what a great moment. And I want to get up with my popcorn and drink that's almost empty and walk out of the theater and feel good about and think about the movie, the film. Mm-hmm. But then he does this other thing.
Yep. And
he brings it to modern day times. He brings it to the chance that, I will say, I'll give it nobody else knows. My wife doesn't even know. She'll probably listen to this and be like, why didn't you tell me? The chance Jews will not replace us.
Mm-hmm.
Every so often I'll hear them in my dreams. So, which pisses me off because that means they succeeded at some level to get in my head. Yeah. And it's a very emotional chant for me. Like, I'm not Jewish. It has nothing to do with it. That chant, anytime I hear it, anytime anybody uses it as promo or anything, and the fact that it just went from this one element of this film and brought it to and laid it in my lap, and it's like, that wound you keep trying to heal, from a year ago, and from, guess what, let me move it around. It's not healed all, but let me open it up a little bit.
Right. So, yeah.
Because it needs to breathe. You need to breathe with it painfully on, just a little bit longer. Because if you don't, you will forget, and that's the thing. We forget. We move on. Just like with the struggle of like police brutality and trying to figure out where the balance is with that. That conversation still has to go on. I support our police department. I like what a lot of things that our local police department's doing. But at the same time, if we're not having these other conversations, how can we improve the hearts and the training and the policies of good cops?
Right.
Because that's one of the things this film kind of touched on. It wasn't just that all cops are, crappy, or it's that everybody has their own point, and we don't know where they fall in the spectrum, and we have to deal with that. And I remember a year ago, the week after that happened, that Charlottesville, right?
Mm-hmm.
A week after that happened, my wife and I went down to Dallas they had a peaceful, love positive protest. Not even a protest; it was a rally, showing that it's about love, it's about embracing cultures. It was like people would think that it was an anti white supremacy, and I guess because of the timing it was, but it really wasn't. It was about pro love, pro tolerance, pro acceptance, because it was multiple speakers from all different areas, and we went and we were part of that, and the police officers around us protecting both us and other people who were protesting us. How do you protest love? But anyway, whatever.
Yeah, it's weird, but
yeah, it's just this element of like, there's so many different levels to all this, and the conversation has to happen, and the conversations have to continue. And when he brought it and just laid it on my lap, and then he's like, "All right, time to go home."
Yeah, okay, you can go now.
You can go now. And it's like,
Spike, dude.
Picked up my phone, and that's when I texted you. And I was like, "Hey, I know you didn't get to come and watch it, but when you do, we need to have a conversation. Yeah. I need to talk this through." And so here we are.
My theater experience, I was almost the only person in there. Like when I got there,
Same thing.
and I got there pretty much right on time, and I was the only person in there, well into the like the previews and stuff like that. And I was like, "Oh, are you kidding me? This is gonna happen. I'm gonna get my experience. This is it." Like that could have only slightly been better, but that was it, right? And so like I'm really excited about it. And then like I always pick kind of middle top row-ish,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't pick the very top.
That's kind of how I do too.
Yeah, and so like I was there, and like nobody else was in there, so I was like, I'll take whatever seat I want, because I we pick our seats,
yeah.
but but I was like, I do what I want, and so I kind of picked a seat, and then like another couple comes, and I'm like, oh man, was I in their seat? But they pick like one that's a ways down, and then like another couple comes in, like a single guy comes in. Then there's a few of them that come in, but I do notice like I was the only black person in the theater to watch BlackKklansman, and I was like, you know what though? It got a lot of laughs.
Yeah,
you got a lot of laughs.
Yeah. Same when I was in there. I don't believe there was any African American audience members. I think I was the only colorful one.
Yeah.
But the response was very positive.
Yeah, I was gonna say there wasn't a negative.
But then again, how many? You kind of have an idea what you're going into if you know anything about Spike Lee and just the title itself.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're getting a lot of.
Yeah,
I don't even know how to describe the other person that would not want to be part of that.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I don't want to put them all into one kind of category because that's not the
I
point.
feel like most of them that would show up to that would be curious of how it really turns out.
Mm-hmm.
Especially knowing it's going to be based off a true story. Because there's a guy I know that didn't go see Get Out because he thought it was going to be propagandist. I was like, dude, it was a dope movie. Like,
it was a pretty good movie, man. Well, and Jordan Peele, right? Yeah. He co-produced.
He wrote it, and I think he was the director.
No, with BlackKklansman.
Oh, You're right.
Yeah,
I think he co-produced, maybe.
something like that.
He has another horror movie coming out.
We should do more research before we talk about stuff.
No, that makes it better. Yeah, that means we get to fly by the seat of our pants. Facts don't hold me down. No, don't. Y'all don't believe that. That's facts are real. Yeah, let me not say that. Yeah, I mean, I don't have my own version of the facts.
Well, I did. Let me ask you top 3 things that you enjoyed about the film, and maybe one that. Let's do one that you didn't enjoy, and 3 that you did enjoy, like short to the point.
Boom.
We
Okay.
can wrap it up.
Got you. Top 3 things I enjoyed. The cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. I believe this is one of Spike Lee at one of his best. The juxtapositions that they took. The 2 strongest being the Harry Belafonte propaganda film scene, or versus propaganda film scene, or initiation scene, however you want to put that, and then the whole film versus the part you talked about, the kind of credit scene.
Oh yeah,
where there's 2017 shots of the Charlottesville events, and then probably the internal struggles of the characters dealing with everything, especially the ones that were mostly humanized or allowed to be, that weren't NPCs, that seemed like very real characters, and then the others were just players around them. But those characters, kind of the building of those characters. A thing I didn't like. That's probably the hardest. Not that I loved everything about this film, but I've thought less about the things that I didn't like.
Gotcha.
Than the things that I did. Something I didn't like. You know, man, that's a hard one for me. Like I said, yeah. And like I said, I don't think it was a perfect film.
No.
But I definitely feel like it was Spike at the top of his game.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I've liked a lot of Spike Lee films.
Mm-hmm.
I even thought his Old Boy was too harshly criticized. He did a remake of a Korean film called Old Boy.
Yeah. I actually have it queued up. I just haven't seen it.
It's really good.
Okay.
I think it was like over harshly criticized because I think maybe I saw this first bug kind of gets to people.
Gotcha.
But it was good, and people didn't like that it ended differently. But why would he remake the exact same film for you?
True.
Yeah.
That's not very Spike Lee anyway.
Yeah, it's not. But anyways, how about yourself?
I was posing the question, not answering the question. Okay. One of the things that I'll start with one of the minor things that I didn't like. I was concerned that with the two characters that were the main villains, the chunky guy, what's his name? Chunky guy, like
the drunk.
Yes, Ivanhoe.
Yeah.
I believe. I just wondered if he was played a little too hick-like, almost too caricature style, and I don't know if that was done on purpose, but it just seemed like I almost wanted I wanted them to kind of keep, I wanted all the characters in the clan to kind of almost keep a very attainable human.
So you
side,
yeah,
you know, and I was afraid that his character and even the other extreme character got a little too extreme, too cartoonish almost.
So nobody could place them in reality because they felt so cartoonish.
Right, and maybe that was a choice done on purpose to help us get through the movie and through the film and through the subject matter, but it just seemed like maybe that was a little too much for me, because I, just like with Charlottesville, you know, khakis in a t-shirt and polo shirt and maybe a cap, in a tiki torch, it's less threatening and more like just a college group that's getting together.
Mm-hmm.
That element. I kind of wanted a little bit more of that with that character and with maybe the other character. But that was one of the main. I guess that was the main conflict I had, because I know a few people who have that kind of characterization that really don't fall into that stereotype. It's kind of like why that one viral video with the redneck guy, quote unquote redneck guy, that gets on viral videos about, and he's talking about, very left side.
Talking about Trey Crowder.
Is it
liberal redneck?
Yeah. It's it's almost that element of like playing that character. So the other element, let's see, with the other two, see, I enjoyed. Gosh, yeah. Oh man, parts I really enjoyed. Like, I enjoyed the whole thing as a whole. I'll add that in there. The whole concept, the whole art form together.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to see a lot of that. You go to movies to escape, or you don't go to this film to escape.
Right. No.
You go to this film to experience what has been placed in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So, go intentionally. If you go, and you should go. And I did, and I think that was one of the things I appreciated, that it gets artsy, it brings up a lot of questions and thoughts and no answers almost. And so here you go. I really enjoyed that aspect. I enjoy that the women. That sounds weird. Sorry, hun. But they're I almost want to say on both sides of the spectrum, on both sides of the characters, like even the KKK grouping and his wife, she had some aspects, a lot of aspects of like not education as in like higher education kind of thing, but like the women in the movie, in the film, were dumb or just petty.
Right.
They were strong. They were educated to their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't backing down, on both sides on that. Because even the wife that finally got to do, was allowed to do something, she's been pushing that. And even when she shows up at that first meeting and gets kind of pushed away,
yeah,
she has ideas. She's ready to go. She has her.
She even puts
she has her stuff together. She has,
She even has clipped the article to give them. Yeah.
Yeah. She. So all the women in the film, I really enjoyed that, because I think that's one of those things where more and more females and female roles are going that direction, and I really appreciate that. That stayed, especially with Spike Lee's film and style, especially at the end when somebody knocks at the door and the cop pulls out the gun, but so does she.
He's like,
she has her own gun too.
Yeah.
She's like, "What? I don't need you," kind of aspect. So I appreciated that. And then finally, I just really enjoyed just some of the acting from. I was surprised. I haven't really been a huge fan of Adam Driver. But I'm coming around on him. I really started appreciating some of his timing on this one. Even that scene we all see on the trailer where Don is like, I hate blacks and whites and Hispanics and and the timing of him just turning the chair around.
Right, yeah.
Was freaking hilarious. And I'm like, all right, I'm paying attention. And then just some of the elements that he, struggles and how he interacted. I really did appreciate some of the choices he made as an actor. And so I was like, all right, maybe I need to watch some of his other stuff and see if he was just really well directed, which, I mean, it's Spike Lee.
Could be.
But I think he has a little bit more talent than I've been giving him credit.
Yeah.
And so I kind of really enjoyed his character and his struggle. And then some of the elements, some of the subtle things in that film that Spike did the takedown at the end, the turkey in the window, and then Driver's character shooting at him.
Yeah.
And then as an audience member, you're like, oh, I see what you did there. Kind of those subtle things that were choices that I appreciated from him. And of course, Washington has that in his blood.
Yeah, he does, man. He's his father's son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a choice. What a choice for him to make as a young actor. Very, very parallel to Malcolm X's, his dad's choice with wait, am I?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was
watching with Malcolm X.
Yeah.
I think that's how most people see Malcolm X. Like if they don't think of actual Malcolm X, they think of Denzel Washington.
Denzel,
yeah, it's kind of like how if most people don't think of actual Muhammad Ali, they think of Will Smith, Muhammad Ali. Yeah,
I can see that more with Malcolm X than Muhammad Ali, just
because he's Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was good for him. He is known as a character named Ricky. He's a character named Ricky in the HBO series Ballers that stars The Rock.
Oh yeah,
Ricky Jarrett. There you go, is his name. And so that was like my first thing I ever saw him in, at least knowingly. I might have seen him in something else, just didn't know who he was. Which is funny because I have a buddy from Atlanta that used to go to some of his college games, and he talked about how Denzel would be almost trying to be incognito in the stands. Yeah, like nobody knew he was
just hanging out watching my
yeah. He's like nobody
cool.
knew he wasn't Denzel. He would do the Marvel disguise. He would have the hat on,
the cap.
Yeah. He would have a cap, and that was totally confusing people that he was Denzel Washington.
Yeah, the Superman effect.
Yep, absolutely.
Put on these and the hairs.
Yeah,
the hair.
Yeah,
I love it. But no, it was a well done film.
Hey man, I appreciate you coming in, and hanging out with me, talking with me about this. I know we had it set up, and I was supposed to get done yesterday and didn't, but.
I was I was supposed to watch the film again. Just I really wanted to make sure
you had all your ducks in a row.
I was like, because there's so much to unpack.
There's a lot of unpacking. Yeah, I want to watch it again.
And I know we wrote down some notes on just so we can keep the conversation kind of going, and we didn't touch on I don't think half of the notes.
Yeah,
just because there's just so much to do with this film. So it's been pretty cool. I appreciate you letting me be part of this.
Absolutely. Anyways, that's been our time. This is my guest, Raul Rodarte.
Yo.
And once again, I appreciate y'all coming out, and I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.
Intelligentsia. It's such a special word.